Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Shahmir Kurd and today I'll be teaching externalities, which is the topic of AS level economics. Now what is externality? Externality is an example of market failure. Now what is market failure? A market fails when it is not allocating the resources available in the most desirable way. Now how externalities is a market failure? We have to study that. Now what is an externality? Externality is called a third party effect or a spillover effect. Now in an economic decision, there are two parties which are directly involved in that. First, we have a first party which is known as the producer, which produces goods and services in order to satisfy those wants and needs of the consumers. And then it is the second party, that is the consumers, who consumes goods and services in order to gain satisfaction. Now externality is a third party effect, the effect on that party which is not directly involved in that economic activity. Now going to the detail of this topic, we have to study these 6 terms. First of all, I'll talk about private cost. Now what is private cost? Private cost of economic activity is the cost of producing or consuming goods and services. Private cost to a producer would be the cost of materials, the cost of labor, the cost of machinery, etc. And what would be the private cost to a consumer? The private cost to a consumer would be the price he would be ready to pay, or the price he would pay to get his or her consumption, his or her wants satiated. Number 2, private benefit. Private benefit is a benefit gained from an economic transaction. Benefit to a producer is the revenue that he or she receives from an economic activity. And the benefit a consumer receives is the utility or the satisfaction he gains by consuming that unit of good or service. Now, what is an external cost? External cost is the cost which is bared by the society of an economic transaction. For example, there is a business which dumps chemical waste. Now chemical waste is a byproduct of that economic activity. It dumps chemical waste into the river or in a nearby lake. Now that chemicals would be harmful, and that the water is not available, the water is not suitable for consumption, and it would destroy marine life. Now it is producing a harmful effect to the society. That is an external cost, and the producer is not bearing that cost. External benefit is the benefit which is also received by the society. For example, you take a vaccination or a medicine for influenza or flu, common cold. Now common cold, if you take the vaccine or if you take the medicines for that, now common cold is a contagious disease. Now if you had taken the medicine, it would prevent the other from getting that disease. So without paying, the other one would have benefited at your expense. So this is an external benefit. Now what is social cost? Social cost is the sum of private cost and external cost, the total cost that the society bears from an economic activity. And what is social benefit? Social benefit is the sum of private benefit and external benefit. That is the total benefit the society receives. Now, there are generally 4 externalities: 2 of production and 2 of consumption. First, we'll take about a negative externality in production. Now, negative externality in production occurs when marginal social cost, the additional cost bear by the society, is exceeding the marginal private cost that a producer bears. It means that the social costs are greater than the private cost. Now, in examples of this, I have previously given an example, which is the land pollution that businesses do. Now, for a positive externality in production. A positive externality in production occurs when marginal social cost is less than the marginal private cost. So that an external benefit is generating in the environment, such as parks. The ones who are not visiting the parks, or the ones who are not paying of the parks, do get benefited. Do get benefited in the form of cleaner air. Do get benefited in the form of a beautiful environment. Now, a negative externality in consumption. A negative externality in consumption occurs when a marginal social benefit is less than the marginal private benefit. Now, example of such an externality is alcohol consumption. Now, when you consume alcohol, you lose your senses. You turn violent, you engage in vandalism, and many other social crimes. So, the society is bearing a harmful effect to your consumption. That is a negative externality of consumption. Now, positive externality of consumption I mentioned earlier, such as a vaccine or such as education. If you receive education, the returns that you receive are the money that you would be earning in a job. But the country also benefits from having an educated citizenship, from having an educated society which is media conscious. So now I've mentioned the four externalities. I will, due to the time shortage, I have only represented one externality on a diagram, which is the negative externality of production. Now, we have the cost and benefits on the vertical axis and the output on the horizontal axis. Now, the marginal private benefit, now as it is an externality, negative externality production, there are no divergences between the marginal private benefit and a marginal social benefit. But there are divergences between the marginal social cost and the marginal private cost, since the marginal social cost is greater than the marginal private cost. Now, there are 2 points which needs to be which needs importance to be laid upon. First of all, what does the producer do? You must remember that the producer always produces at this point. At this point, this is the point where marginal private benefit is equals to marginal private cost. Why it produces at this point? Because this is the point where his profits are being maximized. And in economic theory, producers seek to maximize their profits. This is selfish in economic theory. Now, this is the output. We can name it as QE. Now, there is another point to be considered. That is the point of the socially optimum level, where marginal social benefit equals to marginal social cost. Now, at this point, this is the point which is socially optimum. This is the point which is desirable to the society. But as you can see, this level of output, we can name it as QS, it is lesser than the equilibrium level of output. So there is an overproduction arising from externality. There is an overproduction of that, and which the results of this overproduction, the harmful effects is bared upon the society. Now, how to demonstrate a negative externality? You will first see the amount overproduced. This is the amount overproduced. Now, we will just approach that at which area the marginal social cost is exceeding the marginal social benefit. Now, we can get this area. How? Because in this area the marginal social cost is greater than the marginal social benefit. Social cost exceeding social benefit. So this is the negative externality of production. Now, in consequent lectures, I'll explain you other types of externalities and how these externalities can be avoided. But due to the shortage of time, I'm not able to explain it. If you want further demonstration on these topics, you should visit me at Paragon Coaching Center. Thank you, courtesy of Paragon Coaching Center.